thoughts? I think we'll pass it around. All of us will maybe take a shot at you guys. One thing that's nice about your interpretation is that you have the marking of an andante, but qualified with the adagio, poco adagio, and some groups I think played too slowly, and you didn't. You got the spirit of the andante, but I thought too often in the movement there wasn't enough tension between the main beats of the andante, so it took on a kind of a casual, and it's a fine line, because if you slow the tempo down, you lose that nice sort of easy walking feeling of the andante, which I think you guys had. So it's not really suggesting to play a slower tempo, but to maybe when you're feeling any motion at all, to be very careful that it doesn't happen suddenly or sort of casually, but that there always remains this sense of 1, 2, 3. Always there's sort of a tension between the beats that I think sometimes you lose.
I felt that the most when we did crescendos, that you kind of didn't keep the tension of the phrase, and then it kind of fell away. Basically, all the crescendos I felt you should resist that temptation.
And some of them have
of course, they're written in accelerando.
Right, but you have to do it sort of carefully, not like a routine like a accelerando, but sort of with a Brahms hold on it. I also thought that the soft color you didn't get in the movement so well. I think your bottom dynamic felt kind of like mezzo piano, and then if you wanted to go for a pianissimo color, maybe it got to be piano, but it didn't feel like there was a huge difference. And I think in the opening piano theme, but pretty much when the strings have it later, there are clear markings when it's piano and then pianissimo, and I think you have to make a bigger effort to change your color of sound, not just the dynamic, but maybe to use the bow differently, and maybe take a little bit of time to show the pianissimo. I'm not talking about a lot of time, to change the color.
I felt that there were a couple of big moments in the movement that you didn't satisfy me enough in terms of sort of making it a big grand gesture. Any idea where a couple of those might be?
Probably the biggest one would be at measure 98.
Yeah, that I think definitely should be more, but it's closer to the end of the movement. Well, I would say getting into 115.
Yeah.
That moment, because of the agitation, the stringento before it, and then finally he just sort of releases it and gives you that poco retard afterwards. That has to be a big moment. And I didn't feel like you were quite involved in it.
But one of the reasons is also that Brahms writes very poor dynamics. He basically starts you forte way too early, and then you lose the direction, the whole journey to that point. There's one where the viola has the triplets. You start that forte like he writes, but I wouldn't do that. Start it a little bit more again, so you can actually do the crescendo. You peaked at it like triple fortissimo, and I thought it was.
It's actually a problem in a lot of Brahms where
you have to just
fortes, crescendo to forte. So it's up to you to sort of interpret it a little bit more clearly.
He's a very inspired composer, but not very smart.
So you can feel waves rather when you approach, but it should be led by the cello in the first part.
I want to ask you right about the accompaniment right at the opening. I hear all four notes as being equally. I hear da dum bum bum. And do you have a favorite amongst those notes? So then try to lean on that a little bit more. And I think that whole opening, I mean, you don't have much of a line, but it's in an obligato line in its own way, and I think it has to enhance what the piano is doing more so. So I think there has to be more, first of all, a quiet dynamic, but a little more intimacy of sound and feeling between the two of you there. And I think a little shape in that accompaniment would help it.
I wouldn't stop the bow.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It looks like a little bit mechanical. I think you have to, because he writes the slur over it, you kind of continue to hesitate a little bit, but not really stop. I don't know how.
Yeah, but I think when Dan and I do that line, we experiment with fingering choices and where you are. Like, for instance, at the opening, I can't speak to the viola one, but for the try it on the D string to start, because it's a sort of a
Sweeter color.
yeah, darker, maybe the brightness of the A string and being down in the first position. I think you guys could play that line, maybe it's just going along with what Lori was saying, but with more care, more sweetness.
Also, one other thing that's actually a big plus playing Brahms, if you have any instincts about what to do with a phrase in terms of sound or motion, you're probably right. You know, this is music that everybody feels the first time they hear it, the first time they play through it and play the right notes in the right tempo. It's not something where you have to ponder and study and decide if you're maybe stepping out of bounds, you know, Bartok favorite, something like that. So I think if you have those instincts, you should indulge them a little bit more, especially in rehearsal. Lean on things that need leaning on. Spend time on the really juicy chords. Move through the things that need to be moved through. And then if someone feels like it's too much, say so. But you'll never find out what's too much until you actually do it. If you keep adding just one more grain of salt, you'll never know what it would taste like if you dumped a whole bucket in. Actually, you do know what it would taste.
And I wanted to say something to Megan. Since you've got 84 bars rest in this, I know exactly, because I've said it many times. When you first come in with that beautiful solo at A, you've got to play your heart out in it. You might consider not going up the D string for the second, for dee-da-da-dum, da-da-dum. I cross back over to the A there, and then I go up to fourth position afterwards. But I think that stringento can have a little more passion to it also. Make sure that you really play it out all the way until the forte, and then that's where the first violin comes and takes it back over.
One thing about these big intervals, that transition, and he uses that material, these kind of strange ninths on the D, this kind of thing. I think you guys could get more out of that. It felt, again, fingering choices, don't use open strings, but I would start in the D string, so you kind of have, and feel, can I see your violin for a second? Feel as if you're feeling it shouldn't feel, not that you did it that way, but when you have such and then, so that you kind of, there's more tension between the high note and the low note, and then going back up, I think you went to a fourth finger on the F.
Yeah.
Go to third finger so you can vibrate it. And that one goes to forte. The other ones are just hairpins up, but that one's actually, you guys don't have measuring numbers, okay.
You know where that is in the cello, the same? Mm-hmm. It has to be more connected, and there has to be more of a crescendo. And every second one is within piano. And then the forte one has to be more. That's the one you play with them. But you have to make a difference. And when you finish that phrase, I would be on down. Much easier to do.
Just one general thing. I think there could be much more eye contact between the four of you, especially when you've got something really together. You know, for instance, when the middle voices have that pick up the 35 together, you have that beautiful, that theme. You have to get inside each other's heads a little bit more. You weren't even quite together.
Right.
In that place. But look at each other in advance of playing, not after the fact.
Why don't you try from the beginning again and do a little more playing? Again, going back to the tempo thing, I think it is an andante, as I said. That's how we always hope when we play with pianists, that they won't be too deadly slow. Dan and I always, if it is, we try to influence it a little bit. But you guys are right on in terms of conception. But the poco adagio, I think, it's a character thing. He doesn't want it to be too slippery feeling, just so that there's a weight to what you're doing with the
To me, it's a matter of making sure that every 16th note is caressed a little bit more.
Okay.
Sometimes there's a feeling of dee-dum, da-da-dee-dum, rather than da-da-dee-dum. It's not changing the tempo, it's just giving them a little more care.
I know you want to introduce some motion, but that's what I meant by a little bit slippery.
Okay.
Yeah.
It got going.
Okay.
Maybe also a little too paddly.
Okay.
Too much paddling.
Maybe also bar 7 starts too loud. I know that you want to come up at the end of the bar, but
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if you would keep that
Wait.
same color, the pianissimo, when you started.
Yeah.
Also, the downbeat cello pitches, I wonder if you could imagine that you cause them to play, you know? You're like dropping stones into a pool, and that has ba-da-bum-bum, you know? So don't ever be shy about them. I know your concern is to be with her, of course, and that's the major challenge, but the role is to cause them to play. And if you play them exactly right, they'll come in. If you don't, they might not come in.
So it's a much nicer
Beautiful, the opening.
color.
Try again. Could that have started softer? I'm not looking at a score, but are you back to piano there?
I
Yes.
go back to piano at the 13 where this comes
But
So-
before the
Yeah.
sequence build up, da da dee da da dum ba ba ba. I think you can start that less.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Heidi, I also feel like if you wanted to take more time into the top at 12, you could.
You might get some between that.
Da 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 da.
Sorry, don't mark me.
There's just
That's the only one.
there's just a little more glorious, and then restart.
Okay.
I thought that opening sounded amazing. Perfect, paddle-wise and all pacing-wise.
How about we go from the middle of the phrase, bar 9?
Because even though the piano's written piano at 13, at least in this Peters score, the first violin and viola are pianissimo, right? And so you can kind of feel like it's a real
Yeah.
beginning. Yeah.
Okay.
I still hear these da-dum,
Yeah, sometimes I remember.
You vibrate and then you stop immediately. I don't know, do you vibrate through the rest? Or?
Not at all.
No? Yeah. Maybe just keep it going. There's no feeling of continuing. I mean, you don't have to go over the top now,
None?
Yeah.
Right, so what Lori was saying is make that a kind of a climactic, so you could deem the G doesn't maybe come quite so early.
Yeah, she's taking time and you're actually ahead of her on the second one.
Yeah, and really don't make too much innuendo too soon.
Yeah,
That's important.
exactly.
Really try to gauge it all the way through the
Okay.
part.
Do 9 again. I think 9 could also start a little softer in the strings, right? That's the beginning of something. Make sure that you follow the shape as we wrote it. It tells a little bit this time like
Okay.
You know, the downbeat is the important note.
Also, just because I heard a couple times in what I think you
Yeah, in bar 9 or 10.
I think it's in 10. What play 9?
I think the left hand you changed, but you shouldn't.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think you may have changed. It's not the left hand.
No.
It's the right hand.
Any musicians?
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to see because the natural was on the grace note.
I think, Heidi, you can also, with those, make sure that the appoggiatura is stressed and not the resolution. Don't play the second, right.
Also, if you go into 12, stretch into 12, which is nice, you've got another gesture into 16.
Yeah.
Which one of those should be the bigger gesture?
The into 16.
Yeah, so whatever you've done in 12, you have to magnify that.
Yeah. Okay.
Wasn't quite satisfying enough.
Okay. Maybe not as much time as it.
No, I like
Or
what you
just
did in the
more?
12, I just think you have to
Just
do
more.
more.
Okay.
Maybe try 13 again? Right? You're changing bows between the E flat and the A flat.
Okay.
And that's where I was suggesting you go up.
Okay.
Try it once going up. Also, I don't hear enough of the hairpins
Okay.
that really, and then more so on the next one.
It's the same thing that the piano has earlier with that figure. Don't, in other words, don't emphasize after the figure. Then back away. One thing Lori does very nicely in this area is on the phrase that goes with the crescendo, start a little bit less. So your first two tries, da-dee-da-dum, then start quieter. You know what I mean? Don't actually play more because then you have less to be able to crescendo.
I actually changed, I do down, up, da-dee, da-dee, da-dum. I change on the third beat to give yourself enough sound.
The thing to remember about these markings on the page is that they were written by a pianist. Right? So they're phrase markings, not always words. Nothing wrong with pianists, obviously. But until he ran the string parts by Joachim, he wasn't absolutely sure that what needed to be done. There's a wonderful story about it. He sent off the parts to one of the quartets to Joachim, and weeks went by and he didn't hear anything from him. So he sent him a letter and said, look, we're old friends. If you think the piece is bad, just say so. And Joachim went back and said, no, we've just been on tour and I just found the parts and we're going to take a few days. I'll put some bowings and fingerings in, we'll read through it, and then I'll let you know. And you can see the day after Brahms got that letter, he wrote back instantly and said, send back the parts at once. If you have to put bowings and fingerings in, I must have done something wrong. Can you imagine? He thought his music was so beautiful, you know.
How about, you want to do 2 bars before A?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't pick up.
Oh. That's not, I think the prototype is the dee-da-da-dum-da-dee-da-dum-da-dum. You have to keep that slur. And again, since you've been sitting there for all these bars, not doing anything, you've heard a lot of beautiful music now, you have to say, I'm going to show them this is going to be the most beautiful thing they've heard. Okay? Also, there's a springendo before, and you have to pull the tempo back. Okay? So it has to come right back to that opening tempo. Do the same thing, yeah, with the pickup.
I'll do the
Everybody drops out at this point, but your dynamic is still...
Down low.
Piano, but it's, you should have, you just
Wait,
have fun.
you're not really able to
I'm good, which didn't really want to do that.
Right.
On the A.
One of the things I looked at.
Oh, I know, no. I changed that to E sharp. Right before I played this, I was really knows the story. And then down low again. You don't have to do that, those bowings, but just so that you're free, that your sound doesn't just disappear.
Right, yeah. It's just like, I like that opening on the...
You did.
Yeah.
Well, you're up
I
to
guess I just
that.
have to work on it.
I know, almost exactly. It might be able to pull it off. You'd have to use a real slow bow and not feel like your sound is good. Okay, well, you're thinking about it. Go. If you want to do it's like three on one bow. I'm just going to say, I think I'll put this up.
Okay.
It leads better.
So it's very important.
Okay.
Did you have a reason?
We got to keep going.
Uh-oh.
Very good point. Now let's look at it again.
Well, oh, that sounds bad. But
but
If you-
we
no,
haven't
look-
explored other voices.
I think the one thing, if you do it on the down bow, maybe it works out better later, but do make sure that that you pull the sound a little bit
Okay.
more. It's kind of the effect of being more. Let's get more into the middle section of the,
We've got about 4 minutes.
yeah, so maybe we can.
What's that crescendo there I was talking about in
B.
47?
B.
That's the whole thing. I don't hear the accelerando.
Yeah, when you took over her triplets, they're actually slower than what she handed you.
And in
The triplets are the motor here.
Gradual.
They're not the theme, but they are the motive.
and in the third bar of B, who's the top voice? The cello is the top voice. Has to be ultra appassionato.
Yeah, if you don't mind standing there.
Try again.
Okay.
Much better.
Start it much slower, much softer, and
Okay.
don't do too much accelerando too early. It's a gradual thing over 6 bars. Ruhig, genau, Peter.
In fact, I think it still has to be much louder.
You have to listen carefully to the piano because you're now not, you have to do the accelerando as well as she.
Becca, you have to take over the dynamic from the piano. And would you try it once on the A?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious.
Gets more. And it's not it's
Yeah, okay.
There's
This is a perfect example of Brahms starting at one and crescendo, and a crescendo, and your top.
You want to go all the way
All the
here.
way
Such a
here.
low range.
So loud here.
This is what I mean with the dynamic.
Can be louder on the strings there.
One more time.
But I think they're retarded. Thank you, Lord.
The beginning was very good,
I
but then you got off the
Yeah.
strings, you have to listen to
But the strings also have to play louder.
Yeah, and be careful not to be too loud for them, that
Yeah.
once they take over the theme, then.
I think actually when you start triplets, you could drop back to piano and
Drop back down
Yeah.
to yeah, because there is at measure 50, there is another crescendo marking, so that would indicate
Yeah,
come down
exactly.
first, so I can get to the.
yeah.
And if that's his mistake with writing about 40% or the forte, really everything else on the page is important. One of the reasons she's stopping for every detail is that Brahms was really meticulous as a composer. Not only, especially so in this case, he actually wrote this piece 3 times. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, okay.
And truth to tell, we actually we put the retard 3/8 notes earlier.
Cello Quintet, right?
We put it on the
Imagine.
You mean like,
glorious peak of the trade.
halfway through, was it 3 before?
We put it in the half bar of 52.
Oh, okay.
We actually recall it back there.
Just because Brahms was so meticulous with those writings, we decided to change it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds.
I think we have to stop now, sorry.
Thank you.